All right, hello everyone, and welcome to our immigration updates and Q&A session for our international students at Simon Fraser University. My name is Mei Gao, and I am an international student advisor, immigration specialist at Simon Fraser University. I will be your presenter today, and it is my great pleasure to be joined by my colleague, Karen, who is also our manager for the International Student Advising and Programs at ISS office. So Karen will be moderating our Q&A session later. Thank you, Karen, for joining us. Before moving to the agenda, I would like to begin to respectfully acknowledge that Simon Fraser University is located on the unceded Coast Salish territory, the traditional territory of Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Kwikweluan, and Kazin nations. All right, so just to quickly go over our agenda, we will first start with an overview of recent updates to the Canadian immigration policy, as well as travel restriction, entry requirement, some brief reminder related to medical insurance for international students, and updates on the vaccination and other health mandates. This component of the presentation is being recorded. We will then devote the remainder of the session to a question and answer period later. Due to the evolving nature of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have witnessed that many changes taking place very rapidly. So the information I'll be sharing with you today may change or may be changing as we speak, knock on the wood. The information we share today is current to be the best of my knowledge as of today's date. For those of you who are watching the recording, is on November 4th, 2021. For those who register for the live session, we will be sending you an email in the next couple of days with a list of resources and links that you can refer to after the session. So with no further ado, let's get started. All right, so the first item are not so much an update, but more like a reminder about your status as a study permit holder. So as a study permit holder, you must ensure that your study permit is valid for the duration of your studies in Canada. Many study permits expire on November 30 or 31st. So please check the study permit expiry date and make sure that you will take the proper action to maintain your student status in Canada by applying for an extension. If you are in Canada and your study permit will expire soon, you must apply for an extension before the expiry date to maintain valid status in Canada. Now, generally speaking, it is recommended that students should apply to extend their study permit at least 3 or 4 months in advance of expiry date. Having said so, as long as you did apply to submit an application to extend your study permit before the expiry date, you will have maintained status to continue to study while your application is being processed by Immigration and Refugees and Citizenship Canada, known as IRCC. So this is known as maintained status, formerly known as implied status. Now, for your reference, the current processing time for study permit extension in Canada is listed as 48 days now. Also, if you were a transfer student and your study permit was issued based on a previous institutions you have attended, please make sure that you have completed the Designated Learning Institution Number Transfer Process, also known as the DLI Number Transfer Process, to inform IRCC that you have now transferred and you have been studying at SFU. I would also like to note that you cannot apply for study permit extension while being physically outside of Canada. So if you're currently outside of Canada and you won't return before your current study permit expires, you will need to apply for a new study permit application from outside of Canada and wait for approval before traveling. The current processing time listed for study permit application process outside of Canada is for 15 weeks. But delays are possible due to the ongoing impacts of COVID. So if you're currently abroad and need to apply for a new study permit, please do submit an application as soon as possible if you haven't done that. Now, for more information about how to extend your study permit within Canada or apply for a new study permit outside of Canada as a new student or as a returning student, please visit our website for a detailed instruction and handouts and tips on how to do so. All right, so continue on this topic. Some of you have also inquired about remote learning for spring 2022. So now note that the spring 2022 academic calendar is now available, and it is our understanding that the most classes will be in person, while some classes continue to be offered remotely. So as the institution prepare for the spring 2022 term, adjustment to the course offering may still happen between now or to the start of enrollment, which will be as early as November 8th for some of our students. So by logging into GoSFU, you should be able to find out what courses are offered remotely and in person. And you can also visit the Spring 2022 course website for more information. A few of you are also concerned about the current processing time for study permit application outside Canada and ask if you may start or resume your studies at SFU remotely while being outside Canada. So from an immigration perspective, a study permit is not required for times when you are physically outside Canada and studying remotely. But keep in mind that you must hold a valid study permit to study for any in-Canada components later. And again, if you're currently in Canada, as we mentioned before, you must have a valid study permit, even if those courses that you're taking are still offered online due to COVID. You should also keep consideration of your own comfort level in starting your program remotely without securing a study permit first, because not all study permit application will get approved. Now, if you are outside of Canada and waiting for study permit approval, and you will not be able to arrive in Canada in time for the spring 2022 term, I would encourage you to speak with an academic advisor if you are an undergrad student, or with your department if you're grad students, to discuss your academic options with remote learning. If you plan to take remote courses for spring 2022, make sure that you will also check the course requirements closely, as some of the remote learning courses may still have in-person midterms or final exam components this time. And again, if you have concerns about late arrival, remote exams, you should reach out to your instructor first. And I will also strongly recommend you reviewing the academic concession page to navigate your options if any of those are applicable to you. Now, while you may start or continue with your studies remotely without a study permit, remote learning may still have an impact on your post-graduation work permit later. So under the current temporary measure, if you would like your time studying outside Canada to be counted towards your eligibility for post-graduation work permit, you must either be holding a valid study permit or have been approved for a study permit eventually, and also apply for a study permit, of course, before you start the programs. Note that only the time you spend studying outside Canada online through December 31st, 2021 can be counted towards a post-graduation work permit eligibility. So time spent studying remotely outside Canada after December 31st, 2021 will be deducted from the length of your post-grad work permit. Now, at this point, we have no confirmation from RCC yet whether or not this December 31st, 2021 may or may not be extended. But right now, the policy still states that December 31st, 2021 is the deadline. You must also meet all the other post-graduation work permit criteria to qualify, including the full-time enrollment in all academic terms throughout your studies, with very limited exceptions, such as part-time enrollments in your final terms, or if you are on authorized leave for grad students. Know that there were some flexibilities on full-time enrollment status implemented by RCC for the spring 2020 and summer 2020 term last year. I would like to emphasize that no flexibility has been extended beyond the summer 2020 term. So started in fall 2020 last year, you must continue to enroll as a full-time student to be eligible for postgrad work permit with very limited exceptions to be eligible to qualify for the postgrad work permit. Now, if you're near graduation and you have questions about how to apply for the postgraduation work permit or the timeline, the application documents requirement, you can go to our website for our instruction guide and a step-by-step handout on how to apply for postgraduation work permit. Another quick update is a co-op work permit. So a co-op work permit as a standalone documents can no longer be applied from outside of Canada unless you are applying along with the study permit together. So if you're currently outside of Canada and want to apply for a co-op work permit, your option is to either apply for a co-op permit after you are back into Canada, or you have to apply for a new study permit outside of Canada along with a co-op work permit together. Moving along here. So the next update is on the temporary resident visa and electronic travel authorization, known as the ETA. First of all, just want to clarify that a TRV or a ETA is not a status document, but a travel document for entry requirement into Canada. So if you're currently in Canada, as long as your study permit is still valid for the entire duration of your stay, it is okay for you to remain in Canada without having a valid TRV or ETA. However, if you do have upcoming travel plans to travel outside of Canada, depending on country of nationalities, make sure that you do have valid temporary resident visa, TRV, or ETA in order for you to come back to Canada, aside of meeting the travel exemptions. Now, for students who are from a visa required country, if you're currently in Canada, the application process to apply for a TRV within Canada remains unchanged. But if you're currently abroad and due to COVID, IRCC has implemented changes on how TRV applications are processed overseas. So while IRCC continues to process TRV application overseas, to be eligible for priority processing of a TRV, you must demonstrate that how you will meet the travel exemptions and are traveling for certain specific reasons as outlined by IRCC. So examples of those reasons eligible for priority processing include traveling to Canada to reunite with an immediate family member in Canada, provide care to a critical ill person in Canada. To view a complete list of accepted reasons for urgent processing for TRV abroad, please visit IRCC's website. I also want to clarify that if you'll be applying for a new study permit outside of Canada, you don't have to submit a separate application for a temporary resident visa, as it will be processed automatically along with a study permit. So this will more be a scenario where you actually have a valid study permit, but your visa has already expired, and you need to apply for a valid visa for you to return back to Canada. Now, because of COVID, IRCC processing time on the TRV application has been impacted both in Canada and outside of Canada. Now, for your reference, based on current IRCC processing time that was last updated on October 26th, and in Canada, TRV application is listed as 137 days. So if you're currently in Canada, plan to travel abroad for the upcoming winter holiday, but your visa already expired, unfortunately, it seems that you may not have sufficient time to secure a visa for you to travel in December. Just for some context here, for certain countries abroad, a TRV application processing time has prolonged up to 200 to 300 days. Now, if you're from a visa exempt country and need a valid ETA to travel to Canada, again, you still have to apply for ETA online, and you need to follow the specific IRCC's instruction by submitting a travel exemption inquiry with supporting documents to prove that how you will be able to meet the travel exemption under the COVID-19 processing procedures. All right. Now, while we have more and more students are back on campus now, some of you are still outside of Canada for various reasons. So in the next few slides, I will provide some brief updates, summarize the travel restrictions, exemption, recent change to the entry, testing, and quarantine requirements. First, welcoming changes that have been implemented for a while is the elimination of the 3-night hotel stopover. And that is really great news. Now, if you are fully vaccinated, you will not need to complete post-arrival COVID-19 test unless you are randomly selected for day 1 test. Because this is a random selection, you should still be prepared to take a day 1 test if you are randomly selected to do that. Most travelers age 5 and over are still required to complete a pre-entry testing and show proof of a negative COVID-19 test from that is taken within 72 hours prior to the arrival. So this hasn't changed. But for those who previously had COVID-19 and have recovered, you can provide a test result within, that has been recovered within 14 to 180 days prior to the departure. You will be exempted from the pre-arrival testing. That used to be a 14 to 90 day window. Now that has been changed to 14 to 180 day window. Now, if meeting certain eligibility criteria, fully vaccinated travelers are eligible to travel to Canada for non-essential purpose travel, such as tourism or coming back to Canada to apply for post-graduation work permit within Canada, as it will not be allowed under the travel exemption for study permit holders. But you also must have valid immigration documents to facilitate your entrance into Canada. And the other thing I wanted to emphasize is that regardless of your vaccination status, all international travelers must have a suitable quarantine plan in place. In terms of trying to seek to enter Canada as a fully vaccinated travel exemption, also the final determination will be made by the border service officer upon arrival at the port of entry. Now, the current border restrictions are effective until November 21st, 2021. And I think over the past year, we have seen that this travel restriction have been continuously extended. At this point, we have no insights on whether or not the restriction will be lifted, changed, or extended further. As the pandemic continues to evolve, the policy are still changing. Again, please continue to monitor the Government Canada's website for the most up-to-date information on the travel restriction, entry, testing, and quarantine requirements. All right, so under the current travel restriction, in addition of holding valid immigration documents, international travelers must also meet a travel exemption category in order for them to come to Canada. The travel exemption and its requirement will vary depending on which exemption that you will be seeking to enter Canada. Just a reminder that for those who are coming and seeking to enter Canada as an international student with a study permit, as a study permit holder, you must either have a valid study permit or you have been approved for a study permit with a letter of introductions. Note that if you're holding a letter of introduction for a study permit application based on admission into another post-secondary institution previously, but now you're attending at SFU, you will be required to submit a new study permit application and wait of approval before you can travel. If you're transfer students, again, it's very important. If you have valid study permit, it's very important that you will need to complete the DL and number transfer process before traveling to Canada. In addition, you also must be attending at a designated institution with approved COVID-19 readiness plan, which in this case will be SFU. You don't have to be enrolled in the in-person courses in order to meet this requirement. So to demonstrate you're coming to Canada under this exemption as a study permit holder for non-discretionary purpose, you should carry proof that you are currently enrolled at SFU in the form of having a current confirmation of enrollment letter, which you can download directly through Go SFU. Your studies, again, do not need to be in person to meet this requirement, and you do not need to seek additional support travel letter from SFU to be allowed for entry. The proof of a current enrollment should be sufficient. Again, please do not make any travel plans until you are sure that you meet the requirements for entry, including the final approval of your study permit application or having a valid study permit. And depending on country of nationalities, make sure that you also have valid TRV, which stands for Temporal Resident Visa, and the ETA, which stands for Electronic Travel Authorization as well. Now, you can visit our COVID-19 immigration and travel FAQ page for a list of documents you carry when traveling to Canada. I would also strongly suggest you to reach out to your airlines as well, just to confirm if additional documents may be required for your boarding. A border service officer will make the final determination on whether or not you'll be allowed to enter Canada. Some of you have also inquired about traveling while a post-graduation work permit application is being processed. So your ability to enter and return to Canada will depend on a variety of factors, including the validity of your immigration documents, the timing of your arrival, your return to Canada, your eligibility to qualify for a fully vaccinated traveler exemptions or another exemption category if travel restrictions are still in place at that point. So for example, let's say if you are completing your final semester outside of Canada in fall 2021, even if both of your study permit and your visa or ETA still remains valid at the time you want to come back, given that you have already completed your studies, you will not be allowed to seek to enter Canada under the exemption as a study permit holder because you are no longer studying at SFU. Having said so, you might be allowed to enter Canada if meeting other travel exemption, such as a temporary foreign worker or as a fully vaccinated travelers. So if your study permit and visa still remain valid, and if you do qualify as a fully vaccinated traveler exemption, you may be allowed to return back to Canada under the fully vaccinated traveler exemptions. But again, remember that the final determination will be made by the border service officer. Now, if you don't qualify as a fully vaccinated traveler, the other option is that to meet the exemption as a foreigner worker. Note that entry requirement again will vary depending on whether you already have a valid work permit, postgrad work permit approved, or you have applied for a work permit from outside of Canada with a letter of introductions. Again, if you have any additional questions about a travel exemption or would like to discuss your travel plans in terms of traveling while your postgrad work permit is in process, please reach out and book an appointment with the international advisor and we can help you further on this. All right, so the last two slides reflect complexity and overwhelming amount of information to keep track of. So here are just some resources to help you navigate the overwhelming amount of information. Our travel to Canada self-isolation guide includes detailed guidance on everything you need to know to take care of and before and during your travel to Canada, as well as during the quarantine period. One thing I also like to remind students is if you'll be traveling or returning back to Canada, please make sure that you will register your plan with SFU. This will allow SFU's CARES team to better support you before and after your arrival in Canada. And on that note, SFU has a team of dedicated staff in the SFU CARES programs who are available to support students that need to quarantine or self-isolate. You can book an accommodation package for your quarantine period through the SFU CARES if you would like. Please do not hesitate to reach out to the SFU CARES team if you need advice or assistance with developing your quarantine plan. I apologize for the background noise. My daughter is not back home, so she's making some background noise at the background, so I apologize for that. All right, so again, moving along is, let's take a break from this heavy travel restriction information, and we're going to head into some medical insurance pieces. It's really important to ensure that you have adequate medical insurance coverage for you during your stay in Canada. So just some brief reminder and updates for those of you who are located here in BC. The BC Medical Service Plan, also known as the BC MSP, once again has extended its temporary coverage to students who are holding maintained status in Canada while waiting for a study permit extension. So if meeting the eligibility requirements, you can contact BC MSP to request them to extend your coverage until April 30, 2022. They are also providing coverage for medical service related to suspected or confirmed cases of COVID-19 for individuals in BC who are not eligible for MSP. Now, if you have not yet moved to BC and don't yet have MSP, or if you will be returning back to BC after an extended absence and your BC MSP has already expired, make sure that you do have adequate coverage during the waiting period when you arrive. Generally speaking, the MSP would have a mandatory waiting period of 2 or 3 months before the coverage takes effect. And talking about GARMI, so for the GARMI at SFU plan, note that the international students are automatically enrolled for their first term only. So students will not be automatically enrolled in the GARMI at SFU plan for their subsequent semester at SFU. So it is your responsibility to ensure that you have adequate medical insurance coverage by applying for MSP as soon as you arrive in Canada and keep your coverage active while you're here. If you're not in your first term and you need advice on how to arrange medical insurance coverage while you're waiting for your MSP to become active, contact us and we can advise you on your coverage options. Now, if you're enrolled in the GARMI at SFU plan for the fall 2021 term, you may still apply for a partial refund for the unused portion by November 30, 2021, provided that you have valid BC MSP coverage and you have never used your coverage previously. Now, if you're covered under the interim coverage with GARMI, unfortunately, there's no opt-out option and the interim coverage is non-refundable. For your secondary medical insurance, which is known as the Simon Fraser Student Society, if you're undergrad students, or the Grad Student Society, the GSS, if you're grad students, extend health and dental plan, the opt-out deadline is already passed, and your current coverage is valid until August 31st, 2022. if you're currently enrolled in that plan. Now, if you will be completing in fall 2021, and again, you are currently enrolled in the SFS or GSS Extended Health and Dental Plan, there may be an option to apply for a partial opt-out for you to opt out your plan starting in spring 2022 if you're no longer a student. Please visit the SFSS or the GSS Student Care website for more information about that. Last but not least, a few mandates and guidelines that have been implemented to ensure a safe return back to campus and to comply with the safety measures that are in place by the province. So on this slide, we have summarized a few for your reference. So first of all, to help SFU to inform its safety plan, all students, staff, faculty members at SFU who are currently residing in BC must submit a COVID-19 vaccination declarations for those who and also, for current students that study at SFU and residing in BC, if you have been fully vaccinated, please provide a proof of your vaccination by November 5th. So if you are a student studying at SFU, you should have received an email about this vaccination declaration process. And so please follow the instruction and complete the declaration step as outlined in the email. To comply with the return to campus public health guidance, masks are also required for all indoor common areas, libraries, and learning space, including all classroom and labs across all SFU campuses. Regardless of if you have coverage with MSP or not, all international students in BC can get COVID-19 vaccination for free, even if you don't have coverage with MSP, as long as that they're living in BC. So please visit the BC government website to follow the specific instructions on how you can get your vaccination in BC. So another note related to the vaccination is the BC vaccine card. So by the order of the provincial health officer, proof of full vaccination is required to access some events, services, and business, such as living in the students' housing, use the gyms, the recreation facilities, dining, and etc. So to obtain a BC vaccine card, you will need to first obtain a personal health number and submit your vaccine records on file with the BC provincial government. You will be assigned a personal health number once you have enrolled in the MSP, or you may also register by phone while you're waiting for your MSP to be processed. Note that your proof of vaccination documents, if those are not in English or French, they must be accompanied by certified translations. It will take about 2 to 3 weeks to update your vaccination information in the BC government system there. And last is, as you may have already heard about this, most recent update is the mandatory vaccination requirements for all travelers boarding the flights, trains, and cruise ships in Canada as of October 30th. So starting October 30th, which already started, travelers departing from Canadian airports, including domestic flights within Canada, and of course, international flights, and travelers on trains, cruise ships will be required to be fully vaccinated in order to travel. This requirement will apply to traveler age 12 and above. And there will be a short transitional period allowing travelers who are still in the process of being vaccinated to travel with a proof of a valid COVID-19 test within 72 hours of travel. But as of November 30, proof of full vaccination will be required for all the travelers. So again, please visit the Government of Canada's website for detailed information and updates and plan, and then hopefully that's going to help you to plan your travel accordingly. All right, so that concludes my presentations, and I know that there was a lot of information, and I don't expect you to remember all of it, but if there's one thing that I hope you will learn from today's session is that we are here to support you, and you may connect with us in a number of different ways, including email, in-person or virtual Zoom appointments, virtual drop-in, live chat, and phone advising. And so on this slide, you will find our detailed information, how you can connect with the international supervisor. I have also included a barcode that you can scan using your phone, so that you can save it and view it later. So I'm going to actually end the recording now, and then we will move to the Q&A session. So you're probably is going to hear an alert. And for those of you who are watching the recording of it, thank you very much for joining us today for the Immigration and Medical Q&A session. And hopefully we're going to see you sometime soon. Thank you. I'm going to stop the recording now.